And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this very exciting segment on the 13th day of June. Yes, we're almost midway there to the and very close to the shortest day of the year, which is the 22nd of June. Hey, have you been feeling that cold? And it's been chilly. So much talk about global warming. I think we're going the other way. Brisbane has never felt this cold. Well, right now, I mean, when you look at the temperature, it is 14 degrees and cloudy. That's what we're told. But, it doesn't feel that way. Once you go out, it actually feels much more colder than that. The wind's just going right down to your spine. Well, right now, let's take a look at what's making news on this Monday, the 13th. Well, first of all, Tasmania has been lashed by wild winds.
Trapped on the summit. 9 people were rescued from Hobart's Kinarney Mount Wellington in 3 separate incidents. Rescuers battling extreme winds and blizzard-like conditions to reach them, including a pair of walkers who were found sheltering behind rocks.
These 2 ladies are very, very lucky to be alive. They were very dangerous conditions. The weather chill factor up on the mountain last night was around -6 degrees.
While snow caused havoc in the south, wind cut a path of destruction through the north. A 54-year-old woman was killed at this Beulah property after being crushed by a falling tree. A man was also seriously injured.
Our thoughts are certainly with the woman's family and loved ones at this stage. This is a tragic event.
Tony Spillane has lived in the area for more than 50 years. He spent the day cleaning up the damage on his property.
It was hell. It was really hell. I've never seen it like it all the years I've been here. It was terrible.
Nearby Sheffield was left isolated with no power and limited phone reception. The hardware shop was one of the only businesses open.
We're open because the locals need screws and nails, and they need tarps, and they need things to, repair after the damage that's happened. So we're providing a service, no power and all. We're writing everything down really fast.
The town was one of the hardest hit, lashed by what the Weather Bureau says was a prolonged downslope windstorm. A top wind gust of 126 kilometres per hour recorded early on Sunday morning.
It's pretty deafening and scary.
It was pretty scary, yeah. All the wind was blowing around, tin was flying around.
It's trees on the road and out in the paddocks everywhere. It's unbelievable.
At its height, more than 20,000 homes and businesses were without power. Most outages were in the northwest, but they also stretched through the Midlands to the east coast, leaving many without heating on one of the coldest nights of the year. As you drive around this region, the extent of the damage is clear. The sheer amount of trees and power lines brought down means it's likely going to take days to clean up. With the cold weather settling in, police are urging people to make sure they're prepared.
We know the weather conditions in our state. Whilst it's a beautiful state, the weather conditions can change quite dramatically. So if you're not prepared, you can be caught out.
Words of advice, with winter only just beginning. Monty Bovell.
And winter is just beginning, so, if this is what it is like in the very beginning phase of it, what can we expect a bit further down the track? Well, right now, as we know, there are so many tragedies and things that happen in and around Australia. It's a lot to do with all our way of life, and many times all the things that surround us. As we know, being a very, very flat nation, we are always prone to floods, and then now we're going through this extreme cold weather. Then we have bushfires, and the other one which always comes to the forefront, because our home is gapped by sea. So what about sailing? And there's so many rescues that always happen at the sea as well. As in this report, you'll find a family which has now been reunited.
For the past 4 years, New Zealanders Rob Hamill, his wife Rachel and their sons have been sailing around Australia and the world. Their final leg is a trip from Darwin to Cambodia, dedicated to Rob's older brother Kerry. and the Cambodians who lost their lives during the brutal Khmer Rouge regime in the 1970s.
People talk of closure. You never close grief. Grief is an ongoing process, and connecting with my brother in many different ways. And this is one of the ways. Coming here in Darwin is really special.
Kerry Hamill was in Darwin during its rebuild after Cyclone Tracy, and it's where he bought and set off on his yacht, the Foxy Lady. After travelling through Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand, the boat was blown off course.
That evening that they took shelter behind an island called Koh Tang Island, about 50 kilometres offshore. And on the other side of the island was a Khmer Rouge naval gun base, and that night they were attacked by a gunboat.
Kerry was a great letter writer, and his family is travelling with a box of his letters.
This happened all in the 70s, so before social media and phone calls were really expensive. It's when the letters stopped coming that they knew something was wrong.
Kerry's girlfriend had already left the boat, but Kerry was captured, tortured and killed. 2 others on the boat also died. Rob travelled to Cambodia for trials, prosecuting senior leaders of the regime, and told his story in a film.
The loss of 2 to 3 million lives lost in that terrible time in that beautiful country with beautiful people and culture. It's a small way of acknowledging their losses as well.
It's not just the story of Rob's brother, it's the story of Cambodia.
He now wants to share more of the story with his teenage sons.
I was told all this ages ago. We haven't really talked about it in the recent years. So I mean, it would be good to probably have Dad probably have a proper talk about it.
Yeah, I see it's really important for Dad to go do this, and he's been wanting to do it for quite a while.
Rob wants to talk about his grief openly, something that wasn't common practice in the 1970s.
They talk about grief can be passed through the generations, and so I don't want to have any of my grief carried subliminally, I suppose. I want to talk about it openly.
I think it's going to be pretty emotional. I know I'm going to be pretty emotional. But I think, I think it's something that I think they will get a lot out of, and they'll learn a lot more.
The family also wants to reach out to anyone who knew or has memories of Kerry before he sailed from Darwin. Felicity James, ABC News.
And a good story there if they can get that reunited and relive that the Khmer Rouge area of that Cambodia, and what round they've had been going around the world, and now on the last leg from Darwin to Cambodia. Wow. Well, the other part is we are talking about all these things in Australia that we do, with sailing is one part, and we are also keen hikers, so there's always a bit of problem that we run into.
The wind even yesterday afternoon, that's when it took me off my feet coming home.
Yeah.
And had to hold on to some really nice sturdy fences, thankfully.
Last night was major. Sheffield's never had this sort of weather. Kentish has never had this sort of weather, I believe. It's just crazy. Devastation everywhere. Roofs, people lost their lives. It's terrible. Yeah, we don't have any power. We've got a hole in the roof, flashing damage. Other people are worse off, of course. We're open because the locals need screws and nails, and they need tarps, and they need things to, repair after the damage that's happened. So we're providing a service, no power and all. We're writing everything down really fast and taking photos, and hopefully I can get it all into the computer system when the power gets back on.
So in the 24-hour period up until 9 a.m. this morning, we've seen a number of weather-related events.
And that ties in with our first report of the Tasmania storms. Well, right now, when we move on, what else can we do for our life and the lifestyle? Well, being healthy means eating healthy and lifestyle choices.
500,000 Australians live with dementia, and for the past 2 decades, scientists have been working on a new drug treatment they hope will combat the most common form, Alzheimer's disease.
Tonight on Four Corners, Dr Norman Swan looks at the science behind the treatment. It's been a long and controversial search for a treatment, which is what we're largely covering tonight on Four Corners. And what we're looking at is whether the science is actually going in the right direction. The person you saw in that cut was Professor Colin Masters, who was one of the pioneers of research into a substance called amyloid, or beta amyloid, which deposits in the brain of people who are developing Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is the commonest form of dementia, but there are over 100 different other forms of dementia. And the problem with amyloid is that, well, the theory is amyloid causes Alzheimer's disease because the brain's full of it when you develop it. And for 20-odd years, they've been developing drugs against amyloid to remove amyloid, but none of them have worked. And this latest drug that we're talking about here, which is a group of drugs, is an antibody which sucks out amyloid. And it's very good at sucking out amyloid. You can get the brain back to almost no amyloid at all. The problem is, these drugs are not yet showing benefits in terms of thinking and memory. And the question is, are the scientists barking up the right tree in terms of treatments? Because there's another substance that collects in the brain which is called tau, and there may be something else altogether. But science has been dominated by this idea of amyloid, and it's not paying off just yet, although they're dramatically good at what they say they do on the box, which is remove amyloid.
So the drug sounds pretty good in a sense, but we're not seeing the data yet. Is there any concern that the drug could even do harm if it's used at all?
So this drug went forward to the FDA in America for approval, and against advice it was approved. And there were some side effects, a little bit of some brain swelling and some bleeds. Most people who got these side effects, it was just on the scan, but some people did experience problems. I mean, you expect side effects with every drug. But the interesting thing is that despite the Food and Drug Administration approving the drug, Medicare US refused to pay for it. And in fact, the TGA in Australia, the drug company has withdrawn the application in Australia because the TGA has indicated there's not enough data yet to show that it works. So what they're doing, and Frank Freschi, who you saw in that cut, is that they're trying to go earlier and earlier. Is the problem that you're treating it too late, and you've got to find people at risk of Alzheimer's disease who may have a family history and might have some amyloid in the brain, and they're trying that. So hopefully that will work, but it's likely in the future that a combination will work. The good news is there are lots of drugs in trial, from having gone from nothing almost to quite a few in trial. So something's going to happen, but not quite yet.
Hey, what about lifestyle choices? There's been a lot discussed about that, Norman.
Well, if the aim of drug therapy is to delay, the aim of drug therapy is not to cure Alzheimer's, that's too big an ask, but it's to delay the onset so that you get it later and later in life, and hopefully delay it so much that you never get it at all. In reality, if you look at the last 20, 30 years, every 10 years we've delayed the onset of dementia by 2 to 4 years. So, in fact, the job is already being done without drugs. And you're right, it's lifestyle, it's education, kids going on to finish school, maybe going on to tertiary education, that expands their brain, gives them more opportunities in life. That delays dementia, amazingly. Diet, the Mediterranean diet, intensive exercise, keeping your blood pressure down, not smoking, maybe moderate alcohol use, maybe even coffee consumption, all combined together to reduce the sort of things that are keeping us from aging. Are also keeping our brains from aging and delaying the onset of dementia, which is fantastic news, and we cover that on the show as well.
On coffee consumption, is that good?
I know, my ears pricked up. What were you saying?
I could hear Isk grabbing onto this for dear life. Look, there's a bit of evidence that coffee consumption reduces the risk of heart and vascular disease, and heart and vascular disease is at the core of at least vascular dementia, and maybe even trigger other forms of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. So I wouldn't pin all your hopes on coffee. I keep the cycling up and the Mediterranean diet.
And you and I can hit the gym one time as well.
There's a reason why Norman Swan is Australia's caffeine addict's favourite doctor.
That's right.
Well, there you go. Coffee, yes, and that sort of ties in well with my coffee drinking, yes. Well, we've now got the proper reasons for that. Well, right now, as we know, clubbing, which has been a thing of the past. Why I'm saying past? Because it's a dying trend now. Why is it so? Because previously people used to love just going to the clubs and, but now what's happening with the youngsters? Why are they turning away from clubs?
In the middle of Brome's Chinatown precinct, a once pumping venue sits empty.
Skylar, this is a nightclub, the only one in Broome. Over the past 6 months I've opened it twice. It's been empty for most of the last 12 months.
15 years ago, Skylar was one of 2 thriving nightclubs in town, but these days it rarely opens.
We would trade at least 3 nights a week, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and trade till 3, 4 a.m. Back in the day it was a pretty cool place. We've had our challenges recently.
The main reason the club's been closed this year is a lack of staff. But Stuart Birchall says people are also just less interested in going clubbing.
So over the last 10 to 15 years, nightclubs in general have been in decline. People know that nothing much good happens after midnight, especially as they get a bit older. I think that's where we're at the minute.
It's a global trend. Nightclubs shutting their doors as younger generations opt for small bars and festivals instead. In the United Kingdom, the number of nightclubs has more than halved since the year 2000. In Australia, industry data shows a decline in profitability over the past decade, accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, that's led to more than 120 nightclubs closing their doors. In the Victorian city of Geelong, Mario Gregorio has been running nightclubs for 20 years and says it's become a challenging business model.
Liquor licence fees have increased dramatically by 300% to 400% over the last 10 years. Also, music licence fees have increased dramatically as well. So, yeah, the gap is quite small in margins, but not like it used to be, that's for sure.
He says nightclubs are having to adapt to stay relevant.
People like to dress down now and have a bit more of a relaxed atmosphere. Festivals are also popular, and online dating services are popular as well, so people can generally just stay home and go online and, I guess, look for partners that way, I guess.
His staff have noticed young people are drinking less and using dating apps rather than dance floors to find love.
People also don't go out for as long as well. Like, they tend to go home a lot earlier than what used to happen, say, 10 years ago.
And COVID has had an impact on lifestyle habits. Some believe Australian nightlife may never return to pre-pandemic levels.
I think people have got comfortable in the last 2 years of, being at home in their comfort zone. They don't have to venture out to do anything because it's all on social media.
That's also apparent in Broome, where 20-year-old Harry and his friends are having an afternoon beer at a local microbrewery.
So I feel like people are wanting to drink during the day, get more photos during the better lighting, something like that. Just means they're home earlier and, in bed earlier, ready for work the next day rather than feeling pretty average.
They'll be heading home around sunset, he reckons. A good time had without dancing till dawn. Erin Park, ABC News, Broome.
So there you are, the clubbing becoming a dying trend and people rather get home early as well. So, is it for the better or is it for the worse? Is it something that is, a part of our culture, community that is not going to be there anymore? Or is it a move in the right direction? I'll let you be the judge. But right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and much more on India and the Indian diaspora. Indian presidential polls will be held on July 18th and results will be declared on July 21st, 2022. Indian president's election will be held on July 18th and the result will be declared on July 21st, the Election Commission announced on June 9th. The counting of votes, if it happens, will be held in New Delhi. Before announcing the dates, Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar gave a detailed overview of the presidential polls, the procedure, the value of votes and the nomination process. The nomination can be filed either by the candidate himself or by any of his proposers or seconders between 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the specified days. All COVID-related safeguards and protocols will be enforced in the entire electoral process. EC has also directed to ensure the use of eco-friendly and biodegradable materials as part of its endeavour to make elections eco-friendly. President is elected by the members of an electoral college comprising elected members of both the houses of the parliament and elected members of the legislative assemblies of the states and the union territories. The nominated members of either Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha or legislative assemblies of the states and the members of the legislative councils are not part of the electoral college and hence do not participate in the presidential polls. President Ramnath Kovind, who was elected in 2017, will remain in office till July 24, 2022. India will host a key summit of ASEAN foreign ministers on June 16th and 17th. India will host a special meeting with foreign ministers of Association of Southeast Asian Nations in New Delhi on June 16th to 17th to mark the 30th anniversary of relations with the 10-member grouping and discuss ways to boost cooperation in future. The meeting, which will also mark the 10th anniversary of India's strategic partnership with ASEAN, will be co-chaired by Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and his Singaporean counterpart Vivian Balakrishnan. The year 2022 has been designated as the Asian-India Friendship Year. Regarding Myanmar's participation in the upcoming event, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said the meeting will be held as per the ASEAN format. He added that Myanmar's participation will be as per the ASEAN consensus in this regard. Since the military coup in Myanmar last year, ASEAN has pushed for restoration of democracy and an end to the crackdown on political leaders and activists. As part of this approach, ASEAN has come up with a format whereby Myanmar can have only non-political representation in meetings and events of the grouping. These countries will send junior ministers or senior officials for the meeting. The ASEAN Secretary General will also participate in the meeting. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with a delegation of women from Nagaland state on June 9th in the national capital. As part of the National Commission for Women initiative under Ek Bharat, Shreshtha Bharat, a delegation of women students from Nagaland met Prime Minister Narendra Modi at his Lok Kalyan Marg residence on June 9th. The students expressed their happiness at meeting the Prime Minister. In an interaction, they discussed and sought views of Prime Minister on a host of topics including his vision for the Northeast, his experiences in Nagaland and the importance of yoga. A frank and light conversation took place between the students and the Prime Minister, ranging from preferences for food to the thrust being given by the government to the development of Nagaland and the northeastern region. During the interaction, Prime Minister asked students about their experiences of visiting and exploring various tourist places in Delhi. He also advised them to visit Prime Minister Sangrahalaya and the National War Memorial during their stay in Delhi. India has reported 7,584 COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours. On 10 June, India's union government pushes to jab youth and booster dose. India recorded 7,584 new cases of coronavirus along with 24 deaths due to the infection in the past 24 hours. According to the data shared by the Union Health Ministry on June 10th, the country saw a total of 3,791 discharges in the last 24 hours, taking the total recovery rate at around 98.71%. The total active cases of COVID-19 in India have risen to 36,267, the Health Ministry data showed today. On June 9th, the registered active cases were 32,498. An increase of 3,769 cases have been recorded in the active COVID-19 caseload in a span of 24 hours. The active cases comprise 0.08% of the total infections, the ministry said. The total death toll in the country is now at 5,24,747. In India, the first death due to COVID-19 pandemic was reported in March 2020. Anocovax, India's first COVID-19 vaccine for animals, has been launched. Indian Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar on June 9th launched the country's first homegrown COVID-19 vaccine, Anocovax for animals. This is developed by Haryana-based ICAR, National Research Centre on Equines. Anocovax is an inactivated SARS-CoV-2 Delta COVID-19 vaccine for animals. The immunity induced by Anocovax neutralizes both Delta and Omicron variants of SARS-CoV-2, the Indian Council of Agricultural Research said. The institution said the vaccine contains inactivated SARS-CoV-2 Delta antigen with Al-Hydrogel as an adjuvant. It is safe for dogs, lions, leopards, mice and rabbits. The Indian minister said, quote, "It is due to the untiring contribution of the scientists that the country stands self-reliant in developing its own vaccines rather than importing it. This is really a big achievement," end quote. Besides Anocovac, Toma also launched CanCoV-2 ELISA kit, a sensitive and specific nucleocapsid protein-based indirect ELISA kit for antibody detection against SARS-CoV-2 in canines. The ICAR has clarified that no laboratory animals were required for the preparation of the antigens. The kit is made in India and a patent has been filed for the same. No other comparable kits for detection of antibodies in canines are available in the market. Sura ELISA kit, a suitable diagnostic assay for Trypanosoma evansi infection in multiple animal species, was also launched. Indian Meteorological Department has said that there will be no major relief from intense heat till June 16th. Heavy rainfall is likely in Arunachal, Assam and Meghalaya states. Parts of Delhi recorded a heat wave for the 7th consecutive day on June 9th. The maximum temperature in Delhi NCR and other parts of northwest India will come down by a few notches over the weekend, but no major relief is likely till June 16th, the Indian Meteorological Department said on June 9th. The Weather Office is also warned of isolated extremely heavy rainfall in Arunachal Pradesh on June 10 to 11 and Assam and Meghalaya during the next 5 days. Weather experts said the maximum temperature in Delhi NCR will come down by a few notches over the weekend, but no major relief is likely till June 15th. They said moisture-laden easterly winds will bring significant relief in the region from June 16 onwards. The senior IMD scientist R.K. Jainamani said that there is a heat wave warning for parts of northwest and central India, but a steep rise in temperature is not predicted. Northwest and central India have been reeling under a heat wave spell since June 2nd due to an onslaught of hot and dry westerly winds. The IMD forecasts that the ongoing heat wave spell is less intense as compared to those recorded in April end and May, but area of impact was almost equal. Pre-monsoon activities predicted over the east, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Odisha from June 12th, but North Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh and North Madhya Pradesh will continue to see above normal temperatures till June 15th. Bharat Gaurav train will have theme-based coaches and on-board facility for yoga. The first Bharat Gaurav train, which will take pilgrims to destinations closely associated with Lord Rama in India and Nepal, will have an on-board facility for practicing yoga. The train will depart from Delhi Safdarjung station on International Yoga Day on June 21st. The 10-coach train being run on Sri Ramayana Yatra circuit will be theme-based, with each coach depicting the culture and traditions of India. Coach interior will be decorated with posters and artwork highlighting various themes. 2 coaches have been dedicated to yoga, and an instructor will be present to showcase various asanas, yoga poses, and interested passengers will be able to perform them in the coach itself. This will also be the first tour train to cross international borders and travel to neighbouring Nepal. It will also be the first such train for tourists with all third AC coaches. Bollywood actress Nusrat Bharucha's film Janhit Mein Jari releases on June 10th.
तो बेटा घर वालों को छाते फ्री में दोगी ना या हमसे भी पैसे लोगी?
सब पे एक वुमनिया भारी है। ये सूचना जनहित में जारी है। तुम लोग लाखों कॉन्डम बनाते हो, दरवाजे पे 200 रुपए घंटी लगा सकते हैं।
घंटी तो हमारे घर पे भी नहीं है।
तो यहाँ कॉन्डम बनते हैं। और काका छिपाया तो नहीं बता दे भाई। मनु हमसे थोड़ी बड़ी है।
Actress Nusrat Bharucha is thrilled by the positive reviews coming her way following preview shows of the movie. In the movie released June 10, Nusrat portrays the interesting character of Manokamna, who becomes a quantum saleswoman from Chanderi. Nusrat will also be seen in Selfie, Ram Setu and Belamkonda Srinivas.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in this segment. But before we go, let's take a quick look at all the functions and events that are taking place and just see if it's all updated. If not, then we will bring to you the updated one from tomorrow. all we have time for you in this segment today, but tomorrow we'll be back with our latest news and everything that's happening in around Brisbane, and of course we will also be bringing to you the Daily India report with Anubhuti. Tomorrow, a presentation of PIOTB. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have anything that you'd like to discuss on the show, we're quite happy to get you on board in the studio, or we can hook you up via audio or video link. But the most important part is that if you have something to talk about, we'd love to hear from you, and so would others. So, come on air and share it with everyone. Thank you so much for being with us in this segment on the 13th day of June 2022. Well, its temperature now has gone up a touch, 15 degrees and sunny. It always happens by the time we start the show and finish. Normally goes up what degree. Well, right now it's time to say goodbye. Until tomorrow, we'll see you all then.